Hello, I'm David Zsutty, the Executive Director of the Homeland Institute. I'm here to report the findings of our latest poll. We asked 1,008 respondents, who are representative of white, non-Hispanic American voters, a series of questions about the ongoing Gaza crisis and related issues, such as the legacy of the global war on terror, the U.S. relationship with Israel, and the draft. This poll was conducted from late December of 2023 through early January of 2024. This video was filmed on January 21st. Those who do not learn from history are doomed to repeat it. So let's begin with the global war on terror. For the first section, we asked respondents 6 questions about whether they think the global war on terror has left the U.S. and the Middle East better off in regard to 3 metrics: safety from terrorist attacks, economic prosperity, and freedom and democracy. Slightly more respondents, at 43.6%, at least somewhat disagreed that the U.S. is safer from terrorist attacks due to the global war on terror, compared to 39.4% who at least somewhat agreed. For every other question, vastly more respondents disagreed that the U.S. or the Middle East were better off due to the global war on terror. As such, it's hard to construe the global war on terror as anything other than a complete failure. This was despite almost 20 years of non-stop intervention. Perhaps, like communism, real interventionism just hasn't been tried yet. Interestingly, respondents aged 18 to 29 had a less negative view of the global war on terror's impact on economic prosperity and freedom and democracy at home. This might be because few of them remember the global war on terror, let alone a better time before. Turning to current events, if the U.S. enters a broader regional conflict in the Middle East, it will be in large part due to its relationship with Israel. Warhawks on both sides of the aisle like to claim that Israel is America's greatest friend and ally. When we asked respondents if they could think of a concrete example of Israel aiding American interests, off the top of their head, only 23.1% replied yes. It would seem that this friendship is rather lopsided. This flows into a common neocon talking point to justify foreign intervention and lopsided support for Israel, which is that if we don't fight them over there, we will have to fight them here. But a simpler solution is to neither import nor bomb the third world. For example, 14.44% of respondents think that U.S. support for Israel in the current conflict will greatly increase the risk of terrorist attacks in America. 47.7% replied that it would somewhat increase the risk, and 31.9% stayed about the same. Almost nobody thought it would decrease the likelihood of terrorist attacks. Likewise, 54.4% of all respondents and 75.9% of Republicans thought that accepting the Palestinian refugees from Gaza would at least somewhat increase the risk of terrorism and violent crime. It's hard to claim that U.S. support for Israel is advancing national interests when doing so increases the risk of terrorist attacks and provides a pretext for mass immigration. We also asked respondents if they could think of a concrete example of Israel hurting American interests. Slightly more replied yes at 29.3%. As such, the public could benefit from further education on how Israel has hurt America's interests, such as by bombing the USS Liberty. We also found that respondents think it is likely that the Israel-Hamas conflict will escalate into a broader regional conflict. 22.3% of respondents think it is very likely that the conflict will escalate. 53.5% somewhat likely, 13.5% somewhat unlikely, 3.4% very unlikely, and 7.3% answered, I don't know. However, respondents are overwhelmingly against escalation through direct military intervention. The 23.2% of all respondents who at least somewhat support direct intervention with airstrikes or boots on the ground are decisively outnumbered by the 68.4% who at least somewhat oppose such intervention. If the U.S. government is really as democratic as it claims, it would not risk escalating the current conflict when support for direct intervention is so low. But that is precisely what the administration did on January 12th, when it launched a number of airstrikes on the Iranian-backed Houthis in Yemen. Instead of deterring further aggression in the Red Sea, this resulted in a huge national rally, and both the Houthis and Iran have pledged to retaliate. Escalation is unwise, and especially because a larger regional conflict could require a draft in light of the ongoing recruitment crisis. But our findings indicate that a draft would be neither popular nor feasible. We asked how people would respond to a draft and allowed them to pick multiple options. In the critical 18 to 29 age bracket, 24.6% reported that they would oppose a draft but still comply, while only 4.4% said that they would somewhat support it, and 3.8% would strongly support it. Meanwhile, 38.8% reported that they either currently are or would make themselves ineligible, and 11.5% said that they would dodge the draft. Additionally, 32.2% said that they would oppose a draft through political action, such as by voting and writing elected officials, 25.7% through peaceful protest, and 16.9% through nonviolent civil disobedience. Furthermore, 1.6% of respondents aged 18 to 29 said they would oppose a draft through espionage, sabotage, or leaking information. 4.4% through violence against government property, and 4.4% through violence against government officials. This is rather disturbing, as political violence is a losing solution for all sides involved. Even 1% of young Americans engaging in violent resistance to a draft could be